So hello and welcome everybody to this week's NAFTA meeting. As always, we have our check-in link on the board. Please check in, it really helps us know how many people to expect for meetings like these. But I'm going to let our jazz rep Felix go ahead and introduce tonight's guest clinician.
For those of you who don't know, Brian Leff, he teaches at West Ranch High School. He's the director of jazz. You have a bunch of other titles that I forgot, but he's very highly regarded by everybody as a jazz educator and as an educator in general. So he's here to talk about how to teach jazz band as somebody who's not a jazz musician.
Alright, thank you Felix for having me, and thank you for coming. Good to see you all. When I was in school it was MENC, I think, before it changed to NAPNI, so it's cool that this is still happening and doing cool stuff like that. So I'll tell you a little bit more about myself. You can call me Brian, and I'm a trumpet player originally from the Bay Area. I grew up in a suburb of San Francisco. Went to University of the Pacific in Stockton. I got a bachelor's and master's and teaching credential in music education. And then after that, I played trumpet on cruise ships for a year before starting teaching at West Ranch High School, which is in Stevenson Ranch, Santa Clarita, just about 30 minutes north of here. And this is my 14th year at West Ranch. I teach 2 levels of jazz bands. I do more than jazz too. I have 2 levels of concert bands, and I also teach AP music theory. And I have 2 after-school jazz combos that meet just for an hour a week outside of the regular class schedule. And then my co-director, he does the marching bands, the top concert bands, and 2 levels of orchestra and all the marching percussion and all that other stuff he oversees that. We also have a choir there too, so big program we're on that. And other than that, I direct the Go Jazz Big Band, which is a professional level group that rehearses in Santa Cruz and play gigs around there. And Mateo and Violet have played with us before, so that's kind of my background. I was not just a jazz person when I was going through school, and I'll kind of talk about that in a little bit. When I was in college, I played in the orchestra and the wind ensemble, the concert band, pep band, brass quintet. So I have kind of ended up where I am through some different experiences and stuff, so I'll talk about that. So that's kind of my backstory, but I want to know a little bit more about who's here. About first year, second year students, cool, third, fourth year students, credential students or post-grad, hey, congratulations. How about instrumentalists versus vocalists? Any, who's an instrumentalist primarily? Okay, and any non-instrumentalists? Vocalists? Cool, okay, cool. What about, okay, on the thumb scale, so thumbs up, 3/4 halfway, 1/4 down, what's your jazz experience? How comfortable are you? Good, okay. Yeah, good. On average, we're like in the middle. Cool. So that's what Felix suggested I talk about is jazz for the non-jazz musician. So, and if there's any questions, don't wait till the end. I want to hopefully save time at the end for questions if there's anything that, any burning desires that I didn't get to, but if anything in the middle you want to ask doesn't make sense, if I'm going too fast and you want me to explain something, please feel free to jump in and ask your questions. So let's get started. Any questions? I'm just going to get started. Why should we teach jazz? Maybe you're an orchestra person. How about that? String players versus wind players? Do we have string players here? Kind of. Okay, so mostly everyone's an instrumentalist, wind instrumentalist primarily. Okay, so this is more geared towards that. That's cool. But why should we teach jazz? Why, as a future educator, should you advocate for having a jazz band or multiple jazz bands in your schedule as part of your teaching load? Maybe there isn't one at your school. Why should you start one? Maybe there's one that admin is trying to cut because of low numbers. Of course, it's always going to be low numbers because the average jazz band has, if it's a full jazz band, 17 musicians. That's not a huge class. So why should you fight for it? Why should we teach it? Why it's important, and I think it is. And the first bullet, jazz is widely considered to be the only truly original American art form. It's America's classical music, right? Starting in New Orleans around the turn of the century, going to hotspots of New York and Chicago and Kansas City, and this is our culture and our music that we should keep alive and teach to students because it's part of American history. And a lot of my students that take it's American history, maybe their junior year they talk about at one point on about the Harlem Renaissance, and there's like a jazz unit as part of that. It's like, cool, that's what we're doing. Like we get that in our jazz history as well. jazz is out in the world and students can experience it live. I'm an old man, I listen to the radio when I drive, so I'm gonna use a couple radio analogies. There's a jazz station, you can listen to jazz music in the car. If you teach concert band, there's no concert band channel on the radio. If you teach choir, there's no choir station to listen to. If you teach orchestra, sure you can listen to classical music, but if you're teaching high school and middle school orchestra, it's gonna be a string orchestra, and they rarely play string orchestra music. So there are actual, you can just turn on and hear jazz music without having to really work for it. And when I was driving here just now, there was a Herbie Hancock song that they were playing. Cool, Herbie Hancock is alive. You can see him at the LA Phil like next month or at the Hollywood Bowl over the summer. Like, these musicians are still alive and with us, and everyone comes through LA, and there's a direct way to connect with those artists. On that song, this is going. I did not plan this. This just happens because I listen to jazz music on the radio, and sometimes it influences my lesson for the day. When I'm driving to school, in 5 minutes I can hear something like, well, I want to try that. So they were doing a song from Herbie Hancock's first album. The tenor player Dexter Gordon played a lick called the Cry Me a River lick. It's a standard lick that jazz musicians know. It's like, cool, I can play that for them and show this is the lick that musicians use, and it's been quoted in all these different songs. And the next song was a McCoy Tyner tune, and I was like, ooh, this is good because we're working on modal jazz, and this is a modal tune, maybe we can try it for a combo. So like, there's actual ways to connect to the music just by listening to it on radio, going to jazz clubs. Like there's a lot of it's really easy to go see a live jazz show. It's a little bit harder to see a concert band show, or there's professional jazz groups in the world. At West Ranch, we just this week finished hosting a 2-day band and orchestra festival. We also host a marching band competition, and we host a jazz festival. Of those 3 big events, which do you think gives the opportunity for kids to see musicians that are better than them, not just high school musicians? Of those 3 festivals, it's the jazz festival. Yeah, we get professional guest artists, like a big band and a combo, to come in and play for the kids. There are professional big bands out in the world that are local to LA and that will play for the kids, but that doesn't happen at the band festival because there's no professional concert bands that you can hire to come play for the kids. There's no marching bands outside of schools. So there is a career path, there are jazz bands, so I like to say it's real, it's live, you can see it, you can connect with it, students can experience it. So I think that's one of the reasons, like, yeah, you can go check out jazz. It doesn't just exist in schools. It's a real thing. That's what that bullet point means. And I might be biased. I think jazz is fun. I think the music is more entertaining. It's more fun. It's more fun to play. I'll leave it at that. Academically, musically, jazz challenges students in so many ways. I think, again, I'm biased, but I teach both. I teach concert band and I teach jazz band. It's a lot easier to challenge students, and it's a smaller group. They get better instruction. The teacher to student ratio is a lot smaller. You can have, even if you have a full big band, that's like 22 students. If you have a full concert band, that's like 60 students. In the back row is percussionists, like moving off, hitting each other with sticks and throwing that. Like, it's what, academically, they get better instruction with the teacher. But jazz challenges students to learn new styles, get out of their comfort zone. They've been playing classical music since day one. Now let's learn about swing and how to play in a Latin style, and to start getting out of their comfort zone of playing what's on the page all the time, and to start improvising, and to start becoming more expressive as a musician. Jazz challenges students with 1 per part independence. You've got 4 trumpets and 4 trumpet parts. In concert band, you may have 4 trumpets and 2 trumpet parts, or 10 trumpets and 3 trumpet parts. So 1 per part independence means they are more responsible for their part. They may not necessarily be able to rely on the person next to them. As the music gets more challenging, that becomes even more independent. So they become better musicians by being responsible for that part. And you can say, hey, Timmy, you're our only 3rd trumpet. I really need you to practice, right? Because if you don't practice, no one is going to be able to play that 3rd trumpet part. Jazz challenges students to learn improvisation, creativity, and to help with ear training skills. So that's a huge part. Like, it's possible to teach improvisation and creativity and ear training skills in the other ensembles. It's a little bit harder. You have to really get creative on your lesson plans and how to incorporate that into your more traditional classical ensembles, and it is possible, but every jazz song, if you're picking the right songs, has improvisation. It's part of the music, it's part of what makes jazz unique. So students getting to do that for the first time, all of a sudden they're like, I'm now a musician, I'm not just playing my part, I'm not just programmed to read what's on the page. And all of a sudden they're opening up a whole new world. Question, yeah?
So for improvisation and sort of tying into like getting students out of their comfort zone, have you ever encountered students that will get like really discouraged and not enjoy what they're playing? And you know, because that was me when I was younger, and I'm wondering how you might handle that.
Yeah, there's a whole section on improvisation on the second page, so let's come back to that. Thankfully, if this is real Woodmarker, what I haven't had any students like get super discouraged where they won't even try it. Definitely students that are like, oh man, I suck at this, I don't really want to do it. Okay, cool, at least thank you for trying it. Like, there's definitely some sort of natural ability that goes into it, but as long as everyone tries it, I'm never gonna force anyone to take a solo in a concert. But I will strongly recommend that everyone just try the exercises that we're doing in class. And it starts with making it a safe space in class and making sure that we're all there to support each other and it's okay to make mistakes. There are no mistakes because whatever you're playing in that moment is improvisation. That is what it's meant to be played. So if you play a wrong note, it's not a wrong note, that's just an interesting choice, right? So there's different ways to spin it. So hopefully your teacher wasn't like the opposite, like making you feel bad about it. But yeah, as long as it's like a safe place to try stuff. And I have some exercises that we start with on day one where it's not like, all right, day one of improv, we're playing a blues, here we go, here's a blues scale and a mix of, no, we just start with like atonal soundscapes. It's like, it sounds like a haunted house soundtrack and we just need to play whatever. And there's no chords, there's no tempo, there's no time, it's just make noise and improvise, because for someone it's their first time doing it. And whatever, it sounds goofy, it's funny, we laugh, but it's like kind of letting ourselves out and saying, whatever you play is cool, we're just gonna start making music from nothing. And then we start to say, okay, well now let's learn about what this one scale is. Like, now let's play something in time, but not with the scale, so we're kind of like starting to scaffold to that. So that's kind of like starting it, and hopefully people aren't getting discouraged. Jazz challenges students to become a whole musician. So I think that goes in with the previous point. We're not just reading music on a page, we're not just learning our 7 minutes of marching band music and playing that for 4 or 5 months. We're getting into so many other untapped areas of being a musician. Jazz challenges students usually harder music. I think on average, like if you take a grade 3 concert band piece and a grade 3 jazz piece, the jazz piece is going to be harder, especially for the trombones. I think we don't challenge our trombones enough because when they're starting to learn, any trombone players in here? Oh yeah, Mateo, of course. Mateo's a great trombone player. But when you first start with the slide, they get whole notes, they get rhythms on one note, and then all of a sudden they're in jazz band, they're playing melodies and they're playing lines, and it's like, well, there's only 3 sections, sax, trombones, and trumpets, so the trombone's gotta do something, you can't just play whole notes the whole time. So I think the music challenges the students and they become better musicians through that too. Jazz challenges students with opportunities for composition and arranging. Now again, you can do this in concert band, orchestra, choir, whatever, but I have found a lot of great ways to get students to start writing, and that goes into becoming a whole musician as well. You can write for a small combo, you can write for a big band, there's a lot less musicians. So if you have students that are interested in writing, composition, and arranging, I found that it's a lot easier to get students started with that. There's templates, there's ways you can write a contrafact, which is a new melody over a pre-existing chord progression. You can do a rearrangement of a song that you already know. You can take down a pop tune and put it into the swing style. Like, it's a little bit easier to kind of get students into that. So I think that's why we should do it. Yeah.
Shoot me down if this is too big of a question, but I understand that like culture plays a big part in students recognizing that they even want to be whole musicians. I know there's a lot of like cultures, at least in Saugus where I went, where there's just people who are in the band room and just wanting to play, but not really like do anything more. They didn't practice at home, they didn't take their instrument home. They just want to hang out. And I was wondering how you change the culture or address that and adjust your teaching style to maybe encourage them to find the benefits of being a home musician or meeting them in the middle.
Yeah. So the students that were hanging out and playing, how to get them to do that.
Mm-hmm.
That's tough. Yeah, it's hard for me because my office is separate from my classroom, so admin doesn't want students in my classroom unless I'm there with them. So like in between periods or at brunch or lunch on them, they're not supposed to be in there, but when I was in the classroom, they would just come in and jam, because they knew like, oh, Mr. Left is there, like, let's do a jam session or whatever. So part of it is just being available and saying, hey, the room's always open if you wanna come in, hang out, maybe I'll put on some music, come listen. If you wanna jam, maybe here's a tune, here's Chameleon, let's jam on that. The other thing that I kinda like to I tell my concert band students to try to get them to understand why it's important to be a home musician is usually like November or December when I say, and whenever we're working on those types of exercises in concert band, like, hey, we're gonna play Twinkle Twinkle Little Star by ear in 12 keys. Like, okay, cool, we can play Twinkle Twinkle Little Star in D flat, but now we're gonna apply it to different scales, and can we use our ears to find the intervals? So like when we do those types of exercises, I say, I'm trying to get you to become a home musician so that when you go home, when you go to your grandma's for Christmas over winter break, and your grandma's like, oh, little Timmy, I heard you're in the high school band. You have your clarinet, cool, play me something. You don't want to play the third clarinet part to, some random Brian Balmage's tune that nobody knows. Like, oh, I have the melody for 4 bars, and then I'm playing that. Like, you should be able to like play along to, whatever Christmas Girl she's playing on the piano because you got a good ear, and we're doing ear training, and you can figure out, oh, you're in E flat, okay, that's my F, okay, or you're starting on so, okay, I know what that note is, and I can take it from there. So I'm trying to get them to understand, you're a musician, you play an instrument, you're not just a third clarinet player in the band. What skills can you get out of this that can then take you to other opportunities and become a whole musician? So hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah.
I use that analogy every year, like when you're going home for Christmas, don't bring your third clarinet part, bring your brain, your ear, and your clarinet. Okay. Possible schedules. When is jazz going to be? If you need to start one and it's not part of the schedule, and I realize I'm going way too slow because there's so much stuff, so much pace it out terribly. Okay, I have 2 jazz bands that are part of the schedule. Before school used to be a lot more of an option. The new California law that got passed a couple years ago says classes can't start until 8:30. Jazz is an exception, so that technically is still allowed. We rehearse 7:15 to 8:15 for the advanced 0 period jazz band. And then I do have a lower level jazz band that is part of the schedule. So it is possible to have jazz bands part of the schedule as well as your concert band. Students need 2 elective slots, which is totally normal and fine. If they're in marching bands, that means their PE class is their marching band, which means they don't have to take PE, which means they have an extra elective. Also, summer school is a way for students to get an extra elective. They can go to the community college down the street, they can take a language, they can take a history class. You have to work with your counselor to say, I want a 4-year plan for my students to be in jazz and bands. What can they do to make that happen? So work with your counseling team, find summer school ways to get rid of regular classes, and then that frees up an extra period for them. If you can't get it part of the schedule, it can be either before school or after school, and sometimes it'll be a class as part of your workload if the minutes add up to be enough for a class. Like you can't say, hey, I want to teach jazz for an hour a week, and that's one of my classes. That will not be more minutes than that. But I have seen some schools that have 2 or 3 days a week after school, and it is a class as part of the teacher schedule. And I've also seen a lot of schools, especially at the middle schools, that have jazz either before or after school that's not part of the schedule. It's just a club, come if you want. It's a little bit trickier to have students be accountable when there's no grade or units attached to it. But if you get students that are really motivated, that love bands and love playing and want to show up for another thing, you can say, hey, let's meet before school 2 a week, 3 days a week, after school 2 or 3 days a week. So you just kind of have to get creative with your counselors if it's not already part of the schedule, but there's some options there. Okay, moving along. Daily rehearsal process. And this is based on a 1 to 1.5 hour rehearsal. We're on the block. So my lower band is on the block. We get actually an hour and 40 minutes every other day. My top band is an hour every day before school. My middle school feeder jazz band is 45 minutes twice a week. It's real short, and they kind of get a rolling start because kids come in late. So I've seen it condensed. But this is what I do every day, every rehearsal with both of my jazz bands. Start with warm-ups / skill building. And if it's going to be a heavy rehearsal day, we got a concert or a festival coming up, it'll be 5 to 7 minutes of warm-up. And there's a lot of different warm-ups that I use. And I actually brought my warm-up / skill building books. If you want to pass these around and take a look. And a bunch of the resources in this binder I emailed to Felix in a Dropbox folder that I'm gonna give to all of you in PDF so you can create your own books and steal whatever you want. But warm-ups / skill building. It's not just warming up the chops and the fingers, but also warming up the brains too, especially when we're rehearsing at 7:15 in the morning. I want them to start to think, not just about waking up and being here so early. So there's different types of ensemble charts, like ensemble warm-ups, and that's what the first 2 pages look like in the handout. So this comes from a warm-up called Jazzers Start Your Instruments. So there's a whole bunch of these types of warm-ups where they're like charts for jazz band, but they have different focuses. Like the first one is tuning. On the next page, number 4, is rhythms and articulations and phrasing. A lot of the ensemble warm-ups have solo sections over the blues, so kids can start to improvise. One can be on different styles. There's some warm-ups that have a Latin style and a rock style. So there's like ensemble warm-ups where every kid has their own part. Other types of warm-ups are, I use lip slurs and scales a lot. Lip slurs are super, super important for brass, you know that. While the brass are doing lip slurs, I alternate with the saxes doing the scales to get their fingers going. Jazz rhythms I use as warm-up and skill building. So like pick a note, pick a scale. I think I put a jazz rhythm sheet. Yeah, that's the next page. So this is one of the jazz rhythm sheets that gets them focused on swing rhythms, but at the same time still working scales. So that's another type of warm-up that I use. And technical studies and scale patterns. I've taken just straight up like scale exercises out of classical books and use them with the jazz band because it has a direct correlation to improvisation using patterns. So that's another warm-up that we use, like take a major scale and go through in 12 keys using a specific scale pattern. And then we'll do improv warm-ups as well to kind of get their brains going. And if I'm teaching a new concept or we're working on something that we've been doing, it can take anywhere to 20 to 30 minutes of rehearsal with a much longer time spent on, okay, we're gonna warm up and start talking about a new improv concept. Okay, every day we sight read. Every rehearsal we sight read a new chart, and we'll get to why reading is important. That takes about 5 to 7 minutes. It's super quick to pass out a chart for a jazz band. I just go saxes, I get the lead player, sax, lead trombone, bone parts, lead trumpet, drum parts, they distribute, rhythm section, boom, it all comes back in, and it takes 5 to 7 minutes to talk down the chart, read it through. Great, we gotta read every day. Really, really, really important. Announcements, 1 to 2 minutes. I usually have them up on the board so they already know what I'm talking about, as well as the agenda of what songs we're gonna. I always put the warm up so they know what page to turn to in the book, and then I have the songs that we're gonna play so they're ready for the music too. And then literature preparation, 2 to 4 pieces for the rest of class, depending on how detailed or general you want to get for the students that day. Okay, listening important and reading is important. Both are important. So we'll start with listening. Jazz is a new language. I use this analogy when I'm talking to the kids about listening. If you want to learn French, and let's say you take French in high school, you take French in college, you've studied French for 6 to 8 years, you now are fluent in French because you've been studying French here. Let's say you go to West Ranch, then you go to CSUN. You've studied French for 8 years, you're fluent. Then your college graduation present is to go to France because you did so great in French class. You go to France. Are the French people going to know that let's say you look like a French person, you wear a beret, carry a baguette or something, I don't know. Are they going to know you're a real French person or not? How do you speak the language, but are they going to know that you're
No.
How do you think?
They're so mean.
They can smell it.
No, but basically,
You think you look like a French person.
no, but based on how you talk, how do you think they'd be able to tell?
Your accent.
The accent, yeah, the dialect and the accent would be totally different, right? Because you've been studying in America with other Americans learning French. So what would be a better way to learn French instead of just studying, well, I mean, in an ideal world, go to France, spend a year there, listen to friends dubbed in French, listen to people talking French at the restaurant, and listen to French radio, and immerse yourself in the language. So that's the difference, it's listening to the language and being part of it. We can do that to learn a new language of jazz. It's the same 12 notes as a concert band, but it's a different language. We're using the notes differently. It's a different dialect of music. Even though we're playing the same thing, it's a swing style, it's a bossa nova style. So how are we playing those notes? We have to listen to the dialect to understand it. The good thing is, all of jazz history has been recorded From the very first recording 100 years ago, that's when jazz was getting started. We have all of the recordings on Spotify. It's amazing that we can listen to every single jazz recording ever for $12 a month. We can listen exactly to play and learn to play exactly like Miles Coltrane Monk and every other jazz artist ever. You can't listen to Mozart play Mozart. You can listen to Monk play Monk. So let's do that to learn how to play like Monk. Let's learn to hear what that language is supposed to be, and the minute differences between bebop and hard bop, and free jazz and modal jazz. So you can hear exactly how they're doing it. Listening helps with improvisation, learning licks, patterns, and ideas. Like I mentioned on the radio, I heard the Crimea River Lick. Great, Dexter Gordon uses it in the song. Added down when I was safely at a red light, I jotted it down. Herbie Hancock, boom, got that lick. Helps so much with improvisation. You're starting to steal some stuff from there. If you're not like if you play tuba or French horn and you don't have a jazz instrument, you can sing along, like scat sing, just made up syllables and start to get the inflection and the dialect just through singing along while listening. And then make it an assignment. You can tell your kids to listen. If you don't put a grade to it, they probably won't. You can do it in class, but you don't want to take, if you have an hour class and you're listening to a 7 to 10 minute song, that's like 1/6 of class. So you don't want to take too much time. I definitely do it and encourage students, and we do it in class, but so the next 2 pages are about listening. This does come from the Jamie Ebersol book, who is a legendary jazz educator. This gives a list of jazz artists to listen to if they don't know where to start. And also in the Dropbox folder, there's a page of jazz albums to check out, historically significant jazz albums. This is the listening log assignment that I give students every year in all jazz bands. Every 2 weeks, they do a listening log. They pick an album, they listen to it, and they write about it. And you can kind of skip the top part of how logistically it works, but the bottom half are questions that they should be thinking about when they're listening. So it's not just like, I listened to Herbie Hancock, it was cool. The next song was slow. Okay, like, what are you actually listening for? And as the students do it more often and get a little more advanced, it becomes less of a review and more of an analysis of what they're hearing and how it can help them learn. So all really good questions there about listening. All right, let's keep going to reading. Reading is important as well. Better sight reading cuts down on rehearsal time. If you can sight read, great. You don't have to spend as much time chasing notes and rhythms, then you can get to music making a lot faster. So better sight reading equals better rehearsals and less stress for the director. Jazz usually has more gigs than the concert band orchestra. I put gigs because I just thought of this, when we were in high school, the local library, brand new opened. Who do they have come out and play? The jazz band. You're not going to have a 50-piece concert band come set up to play, the sandwich shop opening or a fundraiser or, the teacher awards night. So more performances, more music, more gigs, more fundraisers, more opportunities. You got to be able to sight read faster. Oh, hey, they want us to play this, African American night. And we need all black composers. Great. Well, that's all of jazz, but we need to pick 5 new songs. Okay, cool. We can sight read these songs and be ready in a week. So good reading helps with that. As you saw with the page of swing rhythms, there are a standard set of different rhythms for the different styles. So if you incorporate that into the warm-ups and do sight reading every day, you'll see all of these songs are the same. The titles are different, but the rhythms are the same. The keys are mostly the same. You'll start to pick up on seeing okay, we can read better because we're starting to recognize what a standard rhythm and a standard tune will look like. The forms are really simple. You got AABA tunes, you got 12-bar blues tunes, so they start to figure that out. And it mimics the professional experience. With my pro band, we have very few rehearsals and then a show. We have a show next Friday, we have 2 rehearsals, and we're playing the gig. So, and that's true for being similar to professional orchestra or concert band. But if we're somewhat trying to train our students to be professional musicians, then we don't want to be rehearsing for 3 months for one show. We can get it closer to what it's actually like. Okay, I guess I'm halfway through the page. Not halfway dull, so that's good. That's what that tracking is about. Okay, and then reading is an important part. Independence, as I talked about before. If they're better readers, they're not going to be relying on each other for all of that, all the hard stuff. So that helps too. Cool. Any other questions so far? I feel like now I've gone too fast. Let's slow down a little bit. Okay. Improvisation skills. So we're talking about that a lot already. I think it's been debunked since I started talking about this, the right brain, left brain stuff, but I'm still gonna go with it because when I was in grad school, I did a big research project on teaching jazz improvisation, and the left brain, data, chords, scales, math, right brain, creativity, listening, and emotion. Jazz improvisation needs to hit both, right? You don't want to be just a robot running scales up and down and doing patterns, but also you don't want to be, playing your heart's desire, but there's no content, or you're not sure what is even coming out of the horn. You want to find the middle. I also think that as a musician, jazz improvisation is the hardest thing you can do as a musician, and then teaching jazz is the hardest thing you can do, or teaching jazz improvisation is the hardest thing as an educator. If it's the hardest thing to do as a musician, getting every kid in your band to at least learn something is incredibly difficult. Because of course there's going to be kids that are naturals and will go home and listen to Miles and learn all the licks, and there's some kids that can barely play their instrument, but you want them to get the experience too. So it's very difficult. I could spend another hour talking about jazz improvisation and how to teach it. But I try to find exercises and things that hit both sides. Or one will be, one day we're going to be doing kind of a right brain activity, like I said, on day one, where we're just playing whatever. It's definitely a right brain creative expression thing. And then another day it's like, we're going to hit scales and patterns real hard today. And it really is a lot of that kind of stuff. I've kind of boiled it down to this kind of step-by-step process where if you can get kids to do this, what I will say very quickly because you understand music theory, they will be successful. So basically, if you can get them to learn 12 major scales, that's great. That's a tougher task than you would think. And my middle school feeder, I'll keep talking about my middle school feeder. Dr. Stoffel's wife is my middle school feeder, Peggy Stoffel. So she's incredible, she's amazing. I will use her as a great example many times. But one of the things that maybe we should pause the recording this. She says all the kids learn 12 major scales, but they come and don't actually know. It's like, I just want you to learn 12. Maybe this was before the pandemic, they were a lot better. But so they should be learning 12 major scales in their concert band anyway. If you can get the jazz kids to do that, it's really important that they start with that foundation. You can be playing a tune that's in B flat, but when you get to the solo section, it very quickly will be a chord on another key center. It doesn't just stay on B flat the entire time. The key signature might not change, but you may be needing to play like a F sharp 7 or something. Now you need to know what an F sharp scale is. So here's the process. I'm gonna play it in case you're not sure what I'm talking about theory-wise. So if you have a major triad, the jazz thing to add is just the major 7. That's very common. It's our tonic chord, right? So when you see a major 7th chord, play a major scale. So if you have, and add the 9th too. I always add the 9th. Right? That's the first step. Major chord, major scale. Then you lower the 7th. That's a Mixolydian mode. It's the 5th mode. It's a major scale. All you do is you just lower that one note. That's for a dominant 7th chord, right? Or 5/7 in one. But there's a lot more than just a 5/7. You can have a 1/7. You can have a 4/7. The Roman numerals don't matter yet. But if you have a dominant 7th chord, just play a Mixolydian scale. To the 9th. Right? All you have to do is lower the 7th. So say, hey, you learned a major scale. We're just going to change one note. So we got 12 scales, now we got 24 scales. Then the last step is for minor. We're just going to lower the 3rd. So minor 7th chord, and you lowered 3rd, lowered 7th, and you know what that mode is? Because you took music theory. Good, Dorian, yeah, the 2nd mode. That's it. If you can get them playing that, first of all, those 3 harmonies cover like 85% of all jazz harmony. Everything's usually a variation or a dominant, a major 7th, or a minor 7th. There are other things you can start to get into, diminished, half diminished, but those are pretty rare for high school charts. But those 3, if you can get the chord scale relationship of major chord, major scale, dominant 7th chord, Mixolydian scale, minor 7th chord, Dorian scale, great. If you can play those notes when those chords come up, and that's a way harder test because that's 36 scales. It's 12 scales 3 ways, but it is 36 different scales. But that is a really like the step-by-step process to get them to that is awesome. And then I think I said the next thing after that is to get it to 2-5-1. Yeah, so we talked about Dorian Mixolydian, connect to chord scale relationship. So you have to show like, hey, there's 5 different ways you can have a C major 7 chord. It could be a triangle, it could be a capital M, it could be a capital MA, it could be MAJ, it could be just the letter, it could be C major or C6 or C major 9, C major 13. Those all mean C major. So you kind of have to show because there's no standard way of writing jazz since it's so new and it wasn't in schools until very recently. It's not like our Roman numeral system that is always a 1 is a 1. So you have to show how to decipher chord symbols. And then once you see, okay, here's all the different ways to show a minor chord, that's always going to be Dorian. Here's all the ways to show a C7. Oh, it's also a C9. Oh, a C11 is the same as Mixolydian. So once they get that and they can get those 36, cool, that's a great start. And then you can show the 2-5-1, which is the most common chord progression. It's all the same scale and the same key. So this is in C. So 2, D minor, G7, and C. Right? So the 2 in C is D minor, the 5 is G7, that's the 5 of C, and the 1 is C. So that is a whole other adventure, as I'm sure we never stop practicing our 2-5-1s, right? I feel it's a lifelong journey. So that's kind of the super quick way of the theory part of it, but it takes a long time of just getting like, can you see that chord symbol, especially when the chords are coming quick, and a lot of tunes have 2 chords per bar. The average jazz tempo is faster than the average classical tempo. Like, it's always funny when kids realize, I tell them like, what's allegro? Okay, 120. In jazz, that's medium. Like up-tempo jazz goes up to 200 and 300. You would never play anything that fast in a concertment. It's just the way, because we don't have 16ths as much, so we can play faster tempo. So everything's faster, their brains are scrambled, but if they can get that figured out, that's a really good step. And there's so many different exercises that I put in that folder, and maybe you saw there too, like ways to get them to start applying. Okay, now that we know the scales, how do we start applying it? Okay, there's digital patterns. Actually, I can show you that page. Yeah, so go to, yeah, oh, here's the scales page. Great, this is also from Jamie Aebersold. And they look at this when they play, and I'm like, damn it, you have to memorize this. Stop looking at it. You have to memorize this. This is not for forever. You can't have this up while you're soloing, because you have to be looking at the chords. You're not going to find it fast enough. So this becomes a crutch, but they need to memorize this. But these are the 36, the magical 36. And then on the back are the 2-5-1s in 12 keys. So there's so many exercises that you can do over this. You can say, hey, let's play arpeggios over every chord while the rhythm section is comping and walking over this and doing their thing. You can play arpeggios, you can play patterns, which I'll show you on the next page. You can play scales, you can improvise, you can play chord tones, you can talk about voice leading, which is a whole other can of worms about getting from one chord to the next. By the way, when you're playing the changes, that's talking about playing the chord changes, meaning can you show how the chords change from one to the next. Also, I don't know if I put it somewhere under the 3rd and the 7th is the most important thing. Oh yeah, that's under the rhythm section. Just remember the 3rd and the 7th are the 2 most important notes of a chord or a scale. Those are the color tones. And that's why those are highlighted in black. That's the root, 3rd, 5th, and 7th. So this is the 2-5-1 exercise. And then on the next page are patterns that you can do over the 2-5-1. This is just the first page. There's like hundreds of patterns in the whole, like there's a million patterns that people will put out and say, here's a great pattern over a 2-5-1, and then you can do it in 12 keys. This one, it just shows you in 1 key and with scale degrees, and those are ways that you can practice playing over a 2-5-1 using different patterns. And on the next page, it's a 4-bar pattern. So on this first page, it's the same pattern for every bar, but then on the next page and later, it's a 4-bar pattern where it's different on every bar. So then you're learning actual licks and language and vocabulary to then use on the most common chord progression. So that's talking about the 2-5-1. The next page, I also teach the blues a lot. The 12-bar blues progression is really important because so many high school and middle school level jazz charts are the blues, and of course it's an important part of our history and our culture of jazz. But I wrote out different types of blues progressions, and I kind of called them the rock blues, using like 50s and kind of the Elvis Presley style stuff. And then the jazz blues, which gets the 2-5-1 at the end. This is the most common one. And then I think I gave the next page. Yeah, the next page is the bird blues or bebop blues, which gets even more chromaticism, tritone substitution, extra types of chords and stuff. But it's all the same fundamental 12-bar. It goes to the 4 chord in bar 5. It's mostly dominant chords, and I teach them that those are like, how do you identify when you have a blues? Well, those are the things that they all have in common. And then the last one is just F blues, because that's the next most common key. So we do a lot of exercises of improv as part of our warm-ups over the blues progression. And it can start super basic. Just play the root of every chord. Play the note and start to hear the chord progression. Sing the roots. We do a lot of singing too. Because if you can hear what you want to, if you can sing or hear what you want to play, it's called audiation, then you're gonna play a lot better. When I first started improvising, I had no idea what I wanted to play. My fingers would just play. And if it worked out to be cool, great, I didn't know what I was playing. But it takes a long time to be able to hear, okay, I want to go to the 9th. Okay, I want to play the flat 3rd here. I want to play this scale pattern. You can actually decide what you want to play instead of actually just like, well, hope this works, hope this sounds good. Okay, let's go back to the second page. Yeah. Okay, any other questions about improv before we move on? Cool. Selecting music. Where to buy? ejazzlines.com. JW Pepper, you've heard of that one? Yeah, JW Pepper's the biggest distributor. They just redesigned the whole site. The whole world is furious about it. I really don't care. eJazzLines is my favorite for buying jazz music. They have everything that Pepper has and more. And it's cheaper. They're great. You call them, they'll answer right away. They have combo music, they have books, they have a ton of big band stuff. They publish their own stuff too. Like if you're looking for Frank Sinatra charts, they have it that Pepper doesn't have. So that's the distributor for all jazz music, ejazzlines.com. There are big publishers that you can go directly to their sites. I really like Alfred. Pretty much all of the charts that I get from my second jazz band come from Alfred Music, and I think they're like local in Van Nuys. I should not be like, hey, it's the airport. Give me some free charts, please. I'm promoting you to the world. But yeah, they're great. They have, and I'll talk about why in a second. They have a lot of great arrangements of charts, and they're color coded. Like red is grade 1, green is 2. That's where we live. And the second band is green 2. Great, mature charts, but accessible. Blue is 3, purple is 4, and 5 for the professional level stuff. Hal Leonard, similarly, they have a lot more pop stuff, and that's kind of the other thing that I talk about. Jazz can get more gigs. You can play, Taylor Swift on tour, and you can play whatever the kids are listening to. There's always charts for that for a jazz band that are not as cheesy as the same arrangements for a concert band. Anytime I hear a concert band or an orchestra play a pop rock song, I hate it. But jazz band, you can make it cool. You can add improvisation. You can get a cool groove in the drum set and the bass, and you can actually have a rhythm section over it. Anyways, Hal Leonard has a lot of that stuff, but they also have a lot of actual jazz charts. Sierra Music is another big one. They've been around for forever, and they've got a lot of that's a little bit harder music, but more professional stuff. They have a lot of Count Basie and some more historical records and charts. There are a ton of small publishers that are like independent, just popping up online. They don't even print music. You buy it, you get PDF. That's another thing too. Like ePrint, direct, whatever is great. You can buy it. Like this happened to me like twice in the last week. In between classes, I bought a chart and we started the next class. It's like, yeah, I want to buy this. And I printed it right then and got it. Didn't have to wait for shipping, didn't have to just buy it, boom, print it, it's great. You don't get it in a big, nice piece of paper, but for jazz, I actually prefer that. So, because don't tell me this, I never give out originals to my jazz students. There's only one part. Yeah, everyone gets a copy. If you want to tape it, fine, but I don't give out originals to jazz because if you lose that Timmy lost his third drum part, I took it home, my dog ate it, great, now we don't have a third drum part. So it's technically not allowed, but as long as you're keeping it's fine. But I recommend that. One time a kid moved away in the middle of the overwinter break and he took the book with him. And I'm like, wow, the originals. Small publishers, ijazzmusic.com. Brava Jazz Publishing is new, it's all women composers. They have some really great charts. Jazzleadsheets.com is a bunch of combo stuff, if a lot of record specific, like actual taken transcriptions from records. You can go straight to composer and band websites. Like if you hear a great composer, go straight to their website. A lot of times they'll just sell you their stuff directly. Bands too, my favorite band, Undertones, they have a ton of charts that they sell on their website direct, and it comes in your email instantly. So you can, if you hear something, go straight to the artist or the band's website. A lot of times they're selling their charts. This is a big one, jazz charts versus non-jazz charts. I put that in quotes. Maybe I should put the non-jazz charts. So what is the difference? And I always tell my new colleagues, my young colleagues, or anyone that will listen to me yap about jazz, play jazz music. Play, like I said, Monk, Miles, Coltrane. Play musicians that are on Spotify. Play charts that you can listen to that are not just the J.W. Pepper demo, or if you go on YouTube, it's Northridge High School. If it's only being played by a school, and it was written for a school, I'm not saying it's bad, but there is so much more to learn when you play the music that has been recorded throughout history. There are jazz standards. There are jazz songs that are available to play, and it doesn't have to be hard. Like I said, Alfred Grade 2, Green, it's jazz standards, and you can play arrangements of jazz standards for a young band, and then it allows you to learn about the musicians that you're playing. You can listen to so many different recordings of people playing that song, which helps with solos, helps with style, and you're opening up the door to jazz history instead of like, we're playing this and it could be a cool song and the kids might like it, but part of what we're doing is not just teaching the charts, we're teaching music. We should be teaching, again, the whole musician. What can we connect to this? What other things can go through it? And I don't like using this example, but I will, because this composer, he's a great composer, but let's say there's a song, the composer name is Jeremy Beatty. He's awesome. He's a film score composer, and he did the planets for big band. It's super cool. But he has this chart called Honeydew Dude, and it sounds like Cantaloupe Island by Herbie Hancock. Because there's Cantaloupe Island and Watermelon Man, and the third missing one, I guess if that suite that ever got completed, was Honeydew Dude. Why play Honeydew Dude when you can play Cantaloupe Island and you can play Watermelon Man? Those two charts exist at various levels. You can play those songs. Why play something that sounds like Herbie Hancock when you can play Herbie Hancock? Jeremy Lee is a great composer, but go to the source, go to Herbie Hancock, and then take your kids to the LA Phil to see him play. And he does play Cantaloupe Island, because I saw him a couple years ago at the Disney Concert Hall. So, at
Chameleon for 20 minutes.
the long chain, yeah, on a guitar, yeah.
You usually take a lot of these musicians, like the Undertones, to West Ranch. Do you ever actually tour, like take the kids to go see them, like yourself?
Yeah, and that's going to be done on the Prop 28 section. I'm going to talk about taking these places. So that's kind of the long and the short of why jazz versus non-jazz. And I'll tell you, for my second band, it's jazz standards, it's arrangements of jazz songs. Like right now, we're working on a set. It's Killer Joe, a cool arrangement of Killer Joe, which is a Benny Golson jazz standard. We're doing My Funny Valentine, which is from a musical from 100 years ago. So the Great American Songbook tune, and I have a whole sheet of like, this is not about Valentine's Day, it's about this thing, and like, there's like cool history behind the musicals that these songs came from. We're doing, later today, that feels like forever ago. Oh, this tune called Tango Tango, it's a Cannonball Adderley tune, and it's a tango, cool. And we're doing a tune called Backlash by Freddie Hubbard from the album Backlash. It's this hard bop kind of mobile thing. So it's 4 different styles, 4 different jazz musicians to check out. And if you pull up My Funny Valentine, you can hear 100 people playing My Funny Valentine. You can hear people singing My Funny Valentine too. You can learn the lyrics. So it's like, it just opens so many doors when you pick good music. For my top bands, which is a pretty high level of music, they can play professional level charts, I'll pick stuff that's on big band albums. So it might not necessarily be jazz standards recorded by, Miles Davis or whatever, but it could be like, a Pat Metheny big band album, or like a modern album of big band music that has a record. So we can listen to like the Chris Berg big band, or yeah, exactly. Like there's so many great pro big bands out there putting out music, so we'll pick music from that type of stuff too. Putting together music into a concert set. So it's jazz festival season. If you're doing a jazz band, hopefully you're taking your kids to jazz festivals. They like kind of a variety of tunes, 3 or 4 of contrasting styles, and that's part of the judging sheet of a good variety of music. You're not going to go play Taylor Swift on tour at a jazz festival, but you generally want 3 or 4 different styles. So there's so many, that's the cool thing about jazz, there's so many different styles you can pick from, and generally you definitely want at least one swing tune. I judged a jazz festival a couple weeks ago, and one band, I've never seen it before, one band didn't play any swing tunes. And I was looking at the other judges, and we were all just kind of like, yeah, but like, you're not acknowledging the history of the music, and you're like kind of disrespecting. It wasn't bad, it wasn't like they were playing Taylor Swift on tour, but there was no swing. That's like, what do we do? So you gotta have at least one swing tune, and it could be a slow swing, a medium swing, up-tempo swing, or even 2 swing tunes of varying tempos. There's ballad, there's so many different Latin styles, like we're doing a tango and a bossa nova. My Funny Valentine starts as a ballad and then goes into a bossa nova. Funk tunes, straight eighths, modern, contemporary, stuff like that. So if you want a variety, that's cool. And I said putting together a concert set, like, how do you even start picking songs? You know, like, if you need to narrow it down, a themed set might be a good place to start. Like, if you're not sure, what do I pick? Where do I even start? If you want to put yourself on a little bit of a limitation, you can say, okay, I'm going to do just songs from the Great American Song. These are themes that I've used, by the way, in our fall concert when we're not doing festival stuff. Usually in the fall, we'll do like Great American Songbook, so I'm picking songs that were written in the 20s, 30s, and 40s, songs that have lyrics, songs from musicals, songs from movies, Moon River, and My Funny Valentine, all Autumn Leaves, you know, great standards that have been jazzed up so many different ways. Big band classics, we've done like, I think that's what we just did in the fall, yeah, we did like a Tommy Dorsey thing, we did in the we did Take the A Train, you know, like standard big band tunes that everybody knows that are important for the kids to know, and when we play Take the A Train, guess who we're going to learn about? Tim Ellington. Cool, that's great. I did a concert of women composers using that brand new website, a lot of great music to choose from there. You can pick a decade, music of the 60s, you want to do something funky, or you know, something more modern, contemporary. So you can pick a theme set if you want to give yourself a limitation on helping. General tips, don't ignore the rhythm section. As mostly all instrumentalists, I see that a lot, is I've never taught jazz before. Okay, I got a concert band, I know how to teach intonation, I know how to teach tempo, I know how to teach good tone. Crap, what do I do with my rhythm section? And I see them get ignored a lot. Just listen to them on their own. Say, okay, just rhythm section at letter A, let's go. And you'll really start to notice, oh, we need to fix this. Oh, now I know what I need to do with the bass player and the drummer. But don't, just make sure that you hear them as their own section, as you would when you hear the trumpets, same thing. While they're doing that, have the horns clap, sing, say their parts while the rhythm section plays. Keep them engaged and see how things are fitting in while keeping their chops fresh. As a trumpet player, I've been in a lot of bands where I've just been destroyed on chops because we keep running it over and over again, and it's like, I get a breather because I'm playing lead trumpet. I don't want to keep doing it over and over again, so hey, brass, take it down an octave. Okay, hey, brass, just clap your parts, see if it lines up with the rhythm section. Sing your parts, say your parts while I listen to them, but you can still see how it fits in. Bass and drums, gotta be best friends. Piano and guitar, gotta be best friends. Bass and drums set the time, set the tempo. Hi-hat and the walking with the bass. Guitar and piano, they're essentially doing the same function and providing chords and harmony. They shouldn't be stepping on each other, so you can listen to both those groups together to focus on the time and the harmony, make sure that they're complementing their roles and not getting in the way of each other. And then get familiar with basic rhythm section technique. And I included some piano and guitar resources as well as in the Dropbox. So this page is a sheet that comes with a bunch of charts. This is from Alfred, and they usually include it, and it's just guitar chords for jazz voicings. And you can use it on any root. It's not like this is D and this is C. It's like this is a minor shape, and then you can shift it up and down the frets to get that sound. And then here's what's called a shell voicing over the 2-5-1 progression. So while the horns are playing their scales, your pianist can play this. And then they're getting all 36, they're getting the 12 majors, Dorians, and Mixolydians in every key just by doing this exercise. And it's really smooth voicing. So if you wanted to learn a little bit of piano, guitar, bass, drums, just to get familiar, that helps teach your rhythm section too. And if you're starting as a beginner on jazz bass, and you have an orchestra kid coming in to play bass, now you're at the same level as them. You'll learn it a lot faster than them. You can be one step ahead of them and tell them, hey, I just learned this and I can show this to you. Instead of it being like, I'm a pro trumpet player, I don't know how to teach my trumpets. If you're on the same level, it's actually really good for them. Drums, same thing. Grooves and fills, kind of standard things. Bass, how to watch bass line. Okay, some other general tips. Do play in class. I didn't realize that this was rare because my high school teacher, also a trumpet player, played in class every day. And I started doing that too, and I see other teachers that don't do it, and it helps that I play trumpet. It's super quick and easy. Mrs. Stoffel plays the bassoon as her primary, but she plays trumpet in class. She got familiar enough and will demonstrate how to solo on trumpet because it's super quick and easy to put together. But don't do it as like oh, you're not getting it. This is how it goes. Look at me, I'm so good. But I'll do it as like, hey, you're playing it like this, maybe try playing it like this. Because again, we're listening, we're learning French. The inflections, how it's supposed to be done. Try a scoop here, or let me demonstrate this improv concept that we're talking about. I'm just gonna play a solo with thirds and sevenths, and I'll show you how it's gonna sound good just with those 2 notes. So use it not as a crutch, but as a tool. That's do play in class. Don't conduct. This is a personal opinion of mine, but I don't think jazz bands need conductors. You count it off, set the tempo, let them go. The rhythm section will handle the tempo. They will listen to each other. If it's something like a ballad, ritordandos, meter changes, sure, but no one wants to see your butt dancing around while they're playing. Count it off, stay off to the side. Younger groups, sure, middle school, if they're not even sure they're gonna get through the performance and you want to cue solos and stuff, but I never really conduct in class, I never conduct in concerts, and they get it, they can do it. So it helps them listen to each other, which is what they should be doing. And jazz bands throughout history don't have conductors. Duke Ellington played the piano, he wasn't waving his arms around. Some do, but most of the time the leaders are in the ensemble playing for the group. Prop 28 and money. We have Prop 28 money, some of you know about that. Yes, good. We voted on this. Yay, thank you for voting if you were of age when that passed. What do you do with money? Hopefully this is a good problem to have. What do I do with my money? You can get coaches. Jazz coaches are great. There are so many professional jazz musicians out that are gigging at night. You want to make a little extra bread during the day, have them come in and work with your jazz students. We do sectionals every other week. We have 4, a trumpet, trombone, sax, and a rhythm section, and they come in and work with both bands for at least an hour every other week. I have a coach come in and do an improv class every week with my top band, and it's great. So Prop 28 coaches is the way to go. Bring in clinicians. You can use Prop 20 as a one-time money. Bringing in different clinicians, either to play with the kids, play for the kids, do extra classes, whatever. So clinic is a great thing too. Guest performances, bringing a group to play for the kids, like I said. Concert trips. I have taken the kids here to the beautiful Soraya, and hey, we're gonna go. We've seen Maria Schneider here. We saw Pat Metheny here. So many great concerts come through. Take the kids, get student discount tickets, use that money. Composer commissions, we do that every year as well. Hire local composers. They can come in and work with the kids. They can help shape the first performance. Money's great. It's cool to have it. Use it for your jazz band. Use your resource here. So I kind of hinted at this in the beginning. I was a classical and jazz player when I was in college. I took every jazz class I could. We were only required to take 1 jazz class for the music ed degree. I said, no, I want to take as many as I can. Our jazz program was new, so all the classes were open and available, but I took my GEs over the summer, and I took jazz piano and jazz theory and jazz improv, jazz composition, jazz pedagogy, as much as I can get into jazz combo every year, jazz big band every year, so I can learn more about it, and that's how I got to where I am today. So and you have a great jazz program here, so, say, hey, can I take this class if it's open? Cool, start taking the classes before it's too late, because then when you're out of school, where do you learn that stuff? Talk to your jazz major friends, take their brains, see what they're listening to, talk to Felix. Find a group to play in. If there's a combo for ed majors or beautiful, go to the jazz concerts, go to the recitals. But you've got a great resource here. Talk to the professors and use it. So I feel like I missed a lot of stuff, and the bells are ringing. So yeah, if there's questions, I think we can stay a couple extra minutes for questions for the group.
No, before that,
Yeah.
do you mind if we take a photo with
Sure.
all of us and you, in case people have to leave?
Yeah.
Leave?
Are we going up there?
No, you just stay.
We're staying here.
Don't move.
You want me somewhere?
Yeah, get in there.
Should I just stick
Okay, just confirming we're all cool being photographed, right? Great. Alright, oh, I'm a little close. Alright, everybody smile. 1, 2, 3. Oh, happy, adorable. Okay. Get some of this. 1, 2, 3. Okay, thank you guys.
Thank you. Thank you.
But you're not.
The other thing I forgot to say, Mrs. Stoffel came to me on the first day she got hired and said, I'm not a jazz person, but I'm gonna learn, and 10 years later, her jazz is her boss. She takes notes every time I work with her kids, and it's a lot of this stuff, and now she doesn't even, like, I go to her class and you already said everything I'm gonna say, so it works. So you talk to your colleagues in your district, get with somebody who knows what they're doing, but it works. It's possible to become a jazzer even though you're not a jazz musician, so that's it. Thank you very much. Thanks for having me. Thanks again to Felix. And yeah, if there's any other question you want to talk about, something that I didn't get to, I'm down. So. Cool. Thank you.
So you're telling me